My question's for all of you. My name's Dan Bowman. I live in the South End. The conservative policy of the family tax credit is, in my estimation, it falls horribly short of providing any kind of value to, to people who aren't married. So it demonstrates something very obvious about the conservative social agenda, insofar as supporting married families, and that's great for them, and they have two incomes. What are your plans to support unmarried families? What are your plans to support single parents? And what are your plans to support people who don't benefit from these tax cuts because they don't have the income to support it in the first place?
I'm losing track of you're putting me on the back here. So the question is just rephrase the last portion.
What's your plan to support low-income earners, to support no-income earners? What's your plan to support single parents? Because I believe that the family tax sharing or income splitting thing that the Conservatives are proposing is horribly inadequate and supports wrong people.
Well, it's a valid point. Much has been made of the fact you can't really take advantage of a tax credit if you haven't got much of an income. There's no doubt that the vast majority, including the $1,000 per child and everything else that's come out in the last 5 years, is geared exclusively towards upper middle class incomes and families, traditional families, as it's said, simply because that's the conservative base. I think that if there's funding arrangements, or whether it's much like the child tax credit is currently administered, it should be based on the child, regardless of the family unit that he's in or she is in. It shouldn't have to do with tax, like whether it's child fitness. I mean, what was the new one? Was the music deal? Art. No, fair enough. The music. Well, I'm just saying the music deal because the kid was playing the guitar and whatnot in the commercial. So, regardless of what it is, I see it the same way you folks do. I see their platform and whatnot. But regardless, everything's geared towards these tax credits. So if I think the big issue I have with that, I'm sorry if I'm drifting, I'll make it quick. The big issue I have with tax credits is they're saying that if you spend $500, say you get for child fitness tax credit. There's a lot of people who aren't looking to put the $600 or $700 or $800 it takes to put Junior or Missy on skates to put them in the hockey rink. They're worried about spending $140 for a pair of skates. And those, forget the $600. They're worried about $140 for skates. And guess what? Those skates, they don't matter when it comes to the tax credit. They're talking about music and lessons and whatnot, whether or not you have the money for families to put your kid in that. I mean, the tax credits are useless to you if you don't have the money to put your kid in there.
Thank you. First of all, I'm going to answer your question in a broader sense, because every election, and I've done many, this is my 6th election in 5 years, I run provincially, municipally, federally. I've done a lot of elections, and I often hear questions about how will your plan help low-income earners or single people or people who don't benefit from the tax cuts that we've presented. We do have tax cuts that may be of interest to you. We will modify the Income Tax Act to enable income splitting, and I think that's really an exciting idea. But poverty, and why we still have poverty in this rich nation that we are so blessed to live in, it's one of those things that often baffles me. It gets down to a lot of the change that we need in society to put forward real solutions requires system change. Judy Revick said it best. We don't need climate change, we need system change. And we do. Right now, our quality of living is measured based on gross domestic product. In Saskatchewan, our GDP has been growing despite the rest of the world that's been suffering from a recession. But as our GDP has been growing, even despite that, The food bank usage in our province has been growing too. GDP is no longer, and perhaps never was, but it certainly isn't in today's society providing a fair estimate of quality of life. It's simply a measurement of how much money has exchanged hands in society. So you see GST tax cuts instead of tax cuts for people that are really struggling. Because at the end of the day, what matters is the GDP, not what people are actually experiencing. If we put in place a genuine progress indicator, a GPI, it's a different accounting it's a different system of accounting which actually uses real criteria: childcare, the environment, the health of our people, how many people are struggling to pay for their groceries. So I think that we need system change, and that is one area I would start: GPI, not GDP.
I guess I would point out that the government is trying to do the best they can given the resources that they have. And those resources, as we know, have been limited due to the downturn in the economy. But what we're trying to do in taxes is to make the tax system as fair as possible, and you pointed out a loophole in that system that is not fair. Appreciate hearing about it. We'll certainly pass that on to our Minister of Finance, and we will try to correct that. Thank you.
You raise an important question. And as a father who's struggling with the cost with my wife, the cost of childcare, and we're married, it's hard enough with 2 incomes to find childcare in Regina and in Moose Jaw. This is not an issue that's just unique to one part of Regina. And it's unfair in our system, our federal system, employment insurance and parental leave, right now as it stands, especially with single parents who want to take maternity leave or paternity leave, that they get penalized from EI benefits once they return to work. So one of the things I will do for parents, single parents, and 2-parent families is make sure that we get rid of that clawback from employment insurance. One of the other things that I'm looking at doing as your member of Parliament is in terms of lowering people out of poverty. We have to reinstate the federal minimum wage that was cut out by the Paul Martin government in 1996. Reinstate the federal minimum wage to make sure there's a bar. And we have to get back to our pledge that was signed in 1990 in the House of Commons to eliminate child poverty in this country. It is absolutely abhorrent that we still have children across this province in all areas, in 2-parent families and in single-parent families that are living in poverty. And one of my commitments to you is to put people first. Mr. Boughen made some references to tax fairness. Well, and tough choices. Well, when you cut $60 billion for the biggest corporations, it does make it harder for you to address the needs of people. And one of the things I'm going to do is address the needs of people like yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.